Hello, and welcome to Replay Value. I've spoken at length about many of the defining moments in Hyouka that elevate it to the masterpiece level, but the true test for a show that's been slowly building up is to see how it sticks the landing. The Valentine's Day episode is the first half of that. It's the conclusion to a lot of plot threads that we've been introducing and developing over the last 20 episodes, even as it sets up a few more for the final one. Episode 21 is one of the best episodes in the show's run for a lot of reasons, and I'm excited to explore them with you as we begin the ending of our journey through Hyouka. We begin the homemade chocolates case with a flashback to Mayuka's unsuccessful attempt to give Satoshi chocolates in their final year of middle school. Mayuka's legs and the pillars both block Satoshi in, forcing him to define his reason for not taking her chocolates. Houtarou and the school both offset the left side, which adds depth to these otherwise centered shots. Hyouka angrily ripping the paper in this direction pulls us up to Satoshi's reaction. Hyouka never gives up. Wildfire was proof enough, and we see her eyes for the first time in a perfect mix of determination and frustration. As she takes a bite out of her own heart as a visual representation for how this must make her feel, she declares, forcing Satoshi off balance, that she'll make a masterpiece that he'll have to accept. This, of course, sets the stage for our episode as we leave the OP seeing Hyouka with a metric ton of books and notes about chocolate. This is her resolve in action, her feelings for Satoshi. Hotarou's visualization of Mayuka's threat is amazing. Dead or love, Hyouka as a villainous witch, hearts in the windows, and Hotarou's shudder followed by shock at Chitanda's approval is equally amazing. Empty space here at work, as usual. The secret plans are made really tight as though Houtarou isn't there, but the following shot makes it clear he can hear them even as he says they've forgotten about him. And Hyouka continues making the case for funniest character in the show with the instant switch from charming to threatening as she tells Houtarou to keep this a secret. That in turn brings us to the arcade, a place where Houtarou and Satoshi haven't ventured since middle school. Satoshi notably takes the shocking pink-colored virtual on machine as the two go into battle. We follow Houtarou with Raiden as he thinks about how Satoshi isn't playing like usual. Middle school Satoshi, who we just saw not accept Mayuka's chocolates, was obsessed with winning and was a sore loser. Houtarou in the present thinks to himself, but subconsciously already knows the answer. It's not, as he wins the match. The following shot after he's won suggests that he's at least partially surprised by his action, but Satoshi confirms his correct deduction by celebrating Hotarou's victory. Hotarou's eyes reflect new Satoshi, as they had previously entered us into the flashback with middle school Satoshi. Houtarou says definitively, which gives us hope that Mayuka's confession will go a little bit differently this time. And from there we join Hyouka, whose indecisiveness and nervousness go a long way to showing how hard it is for her to be forward, and shows how genuine she is in her feelings. As Chitanda gets asked about who she likes, her mouth opens slightly before we leave the shop so we can't hear the answer. But the slight movement of Hyouka to the left, as well as the following shot of Houtarou, gives us the answer to the question. With Valentine's Day finally here, Houtarou gets a bar of chocolate from his sister, the character for pity being focused on as he wastes a huge load of energy on kicking it. It's a nice reminder of how Tomoe is one of the people who is able to get him to break his vow on energy conservation. And another great look at their sibling dynamic. Hotarou's still in a sour mood on his walk to school, his sister's emotional jab clearly getting the better of him even as Chitanda walks up. They're kind of matching, Hotarou's scarf color and Chitanda's jacket. As they talk about Mayuka's chocolate, Chitanda reflecting that it's a masterpiece that must be a result of putting her heart into it, Chitanda suddenly stops to say that and thus she doesn't have anything for him. The following rose-colored moment as they look into each other's eyes is undercut by the wide shot as we hear a conversation about the snowfall that'll happen later. It's an impersonal look at a really personal moment, and the following shot of them walking, now really far apart and looking away, compared to their earlier close proximity, is a laugh just from the sheer shared embarrassment. At that point, we begin the setup for the mystery. Hyouka dropping the chocolates in the study room, super clear how much effort went into it. Satoshi heading up to the club room around 4:20, Chitanda waiting in the club room alone with the chocolates, Satoshi still not having arrived a full half hour later, Houtarou waiting out the snow in the library, and just as it clears up, the chocolates have gone missing. Hyouka does a good job of centering the focus character between the other two characters in this scene. Satoshi pulls you to the left in this shot, so you're paying attention to Chitanda, for example. And Chitanda is distraught over the fact that the chocolate got stolen on her watch, something that, even though Hotarou's walk home looks golden, he surprises the other two by agreeing to help look for it. Houtarou plays it off as not being into horror, suggesting that Mayaka will go full on berserk, but if we're really looking at this scene, we can see that it's because of Chitanda. She was full on shaking and counting on him. How could he let her down? The mystery itself is nothing special. It's a locked room mystery with only one staircase in use that's being conveniently guarded by a guy putting up a poster. That leaves the 3 Classics Club members and the Astronomy Club as the only possible culprits. Houtarou knocks out the trapezoidal poster kid instantly, but he confirms that only 3 people had entered that floor, and Chitanda not realizing that the 3 people who had gone up and down being Houtarou, Satoshi, and herself is totally in line with her singular focus. Chitanda and Satoshi entered the room together post-theft, which really only leaves the Astronomy Club. Things get off shakily though as Chitanda layers an accusation right at the top, leaving Houtarou and Satoshi to try and recover as they ask if anyone had any chocolate or had left the room. Sawaguchi's angered by the accusations, justifiably, and the 3 head back to the Classics Club. When Chitanda returns, so too does Mayaka arrive, and there's this great use of perspective shots. Houtarou, Chitanda, leads to Mayaka asking what Satoshi's thought of the chocolate. But just as those POV shots prepared us though, he doesn't say anything. Houtarou begins to respond, but Chitanda says that it's her fault the chocolate went missing. Mayaka has a sad smile as Houtarou gasps, almost certainly realizing that she already knows the truth of the matter, especially since she doesn't get mad at Chitanda and says that it's not her fault. Satoshi literally says nothing and doesn't even react as she says that it stings, cutting to him for the reaction shot. As Mayaka leaves, Chitanda walks to follow, but Houtarou blocks Chitanda from leaving the room, her saying that she might have to do something drastic, but she'll find it, or she won't be able to look Mayaka in the eyes tomorrow. She can't believe that she's done something that hurt one of her friends as we cut to Mayaka's usual seat, empty. As Chitanda tries to walk past Houtarou, he grabs her hand, a notable inversion of the usual him getting led by the hand by her, him now stopping her from making a mistake. He says that he'll take care of it, telling her that it was the girl from the Astronomy Club as she heads out, stating her trust in him. Houtarou and Satoshi begin their walk home, the final time we'll see them alone together in the show. As they walk over a snowy bridge, Houtarou grabs the bag that Satoshi has with him, shakes it once, and hands it back, fulfilling his promise to Chitanda in giving Mayaka's chocolate to Satoshi. This mystery was far from complex. The answer was apparent right from the very beginning, but it's written in such a way that drags you away from the obvious answer, even as it keeps on providing evidence towards the obvious culprit. Satoshi stole Mayaka's chocolate. And the shot selection of his guilty expressions, the fact that when Houtarou says that he's figured it out, the shot is of Satoshi's bag, Satoshi not being his usual chatty self when asking for leads, and most obviously Chitanda asking, the only person with an actual motive to steal the chocolate was Satoshi. And this is so frustrating because we had thought that he had changed since last year, that his signs of pain during the mystery were empathetic for Mayaka's loss. The fact that we trust Satoshi because he's this character we've spent so much time with. As we leave the visualization of Satoshi breaking the chocolate in half, this match cut to Houtarou stepping on snow, Houtarou asks, not only did Satoshi break it, he then walked around with it on him the whole time they were looking for it. Wouldn't say anything to Mayaka, who realized that Satoshi had taken it but wouldn't respond and said, and allowed Chitanda to think that it was her fault the entire time. He can't even answer this simple question, allowing Houtarou to allude to the second mystery in the show and how they're now even. And frankly, to really break down this scene, we have to talk about the walk home in the rain that I set up more than a year ago. It's the same walk home in a narrow corridor with precipitation falling. Satoshi states in that mystery, the only person who was hurt was Houtarou, and he's right. Houtarou felt really guilty about misleading Chitanda in that case, whereas in this case, at least 3 out of 4 people were hurt, and probably Houtarou as well on behalf of Chitanda and Mayaka. The whole point of the Silk Spider mystery was to put off an answer, in that case about the music club mystery, and in this case, it's the same. Satoshi trying to put off his answer to Mayaka's confession. And that illusion helps us realize, before Satoshi even gives his reasoning, that Satoshi didn't want to say no to Mayaka, in the same way that Houtarou didn't want to refuse Chitanda's curiosity. But Houtarou doesn't realize that just yet, grabbing him and threatening to hit him if this was his idea of a joke. A close-up showing how personal Houtarou is taking Satoshi's aloof attitude towards this matter. But Satoshi does have an explanation, which he launches into, accompanied, of course, by track 43, for the final time. Satoshi would describe himself as obsessive, but that was the old him. The old middle school him, who was obsessed with winning and trying to be the best. Visually, this is represented by the imperfect snowball, nowhere near to being perfect, that he tosses aside, just like he tossed aside his desire to always win because it wasn't fun. Obsessed with being obsessed with nothing, everything was perfect.
でも一つだけ問題があった。Mayakaだ。
Satoshi's desire to not be obsessed with anything is in direct contrast to his desire to be with Mayaka, a possibility to obsess over her. And that scares him, and that leads us to the inevitable paradox, a chocolate that he cannot accept but does not want to decline. Satoshi sadly acknowledges this, noting that it's self-centered and completely disregards Mayaka's feelings. And I think it's important that we take this moment to really contextualize all of this, because it reconstructs a lot of the show. Old Satoshi was basically Tani, someone who Satoshi wants nothing to do with. It's a reminder of what he's left behind, of how he's matured as a person. Satoshi couldn't even remember Tani's name at first, as though he'd started to forget about that part of himself. Satoshi dyed himself shocking pink. He can't be dyed by others because he'd already done it. And that's why every day is great. If there's nothing to be upset about, why wouldn't it be? He doesn't get super mad that much anymore, at least not that Chitanda has seen, because he's grown up from his days of being a sore loser. He's matured, but it's not perfect. He sometimes slips back into his competitive, less mature self. When he wanted to find Jumoji and competed with Houtarou being the best example, but even then, Satoshi shows more maturity by the end of that arc. The most notable place where Satoshi is still vastly immature is with Mayaka. Mayaka is far from perfect, but she knows what she wants in life and strives to get it. And her feelings for Satoshi are so genuine, it's almost painful to watch him shrug her off at every opportunity. It's unbelievably self-absorbed, and his acknowledgement of that frankly makes it worse. In 1 year, he couldn't come to an answer. In his desire to work on himself, he's afraid he'll lose himself in another person. He's comfortable staying in the light on the bridge and nervous about the potential of falling into the unknown waters below. He's at a standstill. He doesn't want to go back, but he's hesitating about moving forward. His growth as a person isn't quite done yet. He doesn't want to hurt the people around him, but he's too focused on himself, which leads to him hurting them by proxy. Mayaka and Chitanda most clearly in this example. Him not willing to speak up and prevent Chitanda from believing she was at fault. His cowardice about coming to terms with Mayaka's feelings for him. A huge part of becoming more mature, Hyouka makes clear, is realizing how your actions affect the people you care about, and how that in turn affects you. And this is the moment that we see, for all of Satoshi's good points and advice at the start of the series, he's still trying to figure out things just as much as Houtarou is. Houtarou asks him if he's found his answer yet, and Satoshi, in the most serious he's been in the entire episode, says that he'll have his answer soon. And Houtarou, in a nice reversal of the second mystery, is now the one that helps Satoshi realize his next steps by saying,
お前は器用なくせに不器用すぎる.
In other words, saying that Satoshi is a good guy at heart, he's just not always making the right decision. Earlier, before Houtarou asked if Satoshi had figured out his answer, we cut to Mayaka and Chitanda also on a bridge, them in the same positions as their male counterparts. As we confirmed that indeed Mayaka had known, Chitanda smiles a bit as she realized that she didn't mess up and that Houtarou lied to protect Satoshi, and also her from making a mistake that she wouldn't be able to undo. We can see the first few snowflakes falling as we cut back to the boys. Jumping back to after the bridge discussion, Houtarou calls Chitanda and tells her that he got the chocolates to Satoshi. And as Chitanda thanks him for everything he did, recognizing that he was trying to protect both her and Satoshi at the same time, Houtarou likely realizes she knows the truth of the matter. Satoshi, meanwhile, makes a phone call of his own, exhaling deeply as he knows he's about to be very honest, queued up on the bridge earlier, and calls Mayaka. We can't know what Satoshi said on this phone call at this point. We'll be putting the full wrap on this bow in the next episode. But it's safe to say he told her everything about his insecurities and his concerns, about why he couldn't accept and why he would hate to deny. We can't know whether Mayaka accepted that or if things went back to normal just yet. Some things still need to be resolved in the finale, but at the very least, Satoshi was honest with Mayaka and stopped making light of her feelings. A huge change and step of maturity that has been needed since episode 2. And as Houtarou takes a bite of the chocolate his sister gave him, he says bitter as we end the episode. A bittersweet conclusion to Mayaka's confession. Satoshi likely could still not say yes, and a reminder that a rose-colored life has its downsides as well. Satoshi, in a lot of ways, is the most human character in the show. He's the most flawed, but in ways that are normal for a high schooler. He's self-absorbed and petty by default, but he's trying to grow beyond that, and frankly, that's likely why Mayaka likes him so much. Because he sees the best in other people, and uses that as a reason to strive to be a better version of himself instead of getting angry about not being as good. Episode 21 is the most frustrated I've ever been with a character in Hyouka, because even though Satoshi blowing off Mayaka was played for laughs in episode 2 and 6, it was still wrong. And Mayaka, who is so nervous striving forward regardless because of her honest feelings being completely ignored without a word, is so heart-wrenchingly difficult to watch. But this snowy bridge scene is the culmination of so many Houtarou and Satoshi interactions. The final page layered on scene after scene where we slowly got to see more of Satoshi truly is before this moment where the truth is laid bare. Satoshi is not a perfect person, but he's someone who is striving to be his best self, and slowly, over the course of the entire show, realizes that sometimes you need your friends to help give you that final push to take the next step.